Do you think it's true that a man pays for sex in one way or another?
Do you remember the last time you laughed like really hard with a dear friend? Like laughing uncontrollably and the laughter just like kind of goes on in a way that doesn't even make sense. And part of the reason it keeps going is because the two of you know each other so well. Like one of you gives like a glance or a look or like a callback to another joke, and like you just double over and you keep going. So hold that idea in your mind of that glorious connective experience of just two people like, co-creating a moment. And just by the beauty of the human experience, it's like gift of laughter. Now in that moment, do you ever ask yourself, who's paying for this? In that kind of moment, is it costing anyone anything? Like real human connection and interaction isn't a transaction. It's a beautiful co-created experience. And the crazy thing is, like, you can laugh alone, right? Obviously, laughter is something you can do alone. But it's the reason we go to comedy clubs. It's the reason we go to funny movies. Like, laughing with other people, there's some sort of unique joy about that is like, it fills us. I mean, and sex is very similar. I mean, you can have a good time alone, right? But the fact that there's someone there co-creating an experience with you is more than the sum of its parts, right? This is the magic of human connection. And the minute you start asking questions like, who is paying for this? You've fallen for the perversion and the lie that our society puts out about sex, that this is a transaction. Anytime you think that sex is anything less than something beautiful co-created among human beings, you've misunderstood what sex is entirely. But I'd like to show you something that is my whole thesis about intimacy. We have those plates. I think they're made by like the FDA, but they show you like what kind of nutrient balance you should have on your plate in order to have a healthy diet. I think intimacy has the exact same plate. I've made a terrible diagram to illustrate. Here it is, the intimacy plate. As you can see, sex is on it. It's one of the ways to experience intimacy, but it's not the only way. And the biggest part of this plate is knowing oneself and knowing others. Knowing and being known is like the foundation of intimacy. And in fact, I would argue that you cannot have intimacy with others unless you have it with yourself first. So that's really important on the plate. All of these other spaces on the plate are ways you can explore, interact, and develop intimacy. I think in addition to being a need, intimacy can also be described as a skill. I think part of the places where we can explore various aspects of intimacy are work, community, friendship, and family. Ways we can explore intimacy include care, fun, affection, love, reciprocity, connection, sex, security, safety. These can all be a part of the exploration and the interaction with intimacy. I think affection's kind of an interesting one because for so many people, the only place, particularly in American society, people feel very comfortable showing affection is only with our deepest relationships and most often with our romantic relationships. But I really, really do believe in order to have like a really effective diet of affection, it needs to be coming from lots of different places. Hopefully you have affection with your family, affection with your friends, and of course, affection with your close or romantic partner. I think problems come in when you have a plate that looks like this, where you feel like the only way you are known and you're being known is when you're having sex. The only way you feel connected to yourself or others is when you're having sex. One of the only ways you experience fun or affection is when you're having sex. One of the only ways you experience security or safety or authenticity is when you're having sex. Just like in a food scenario, a diet like this leads to malnourishment. Today we also had like that food pyramid where like the foundational things, like the things you should have the most of were at the bottom. I think there's a way to describe intimacy that way as well. In this way, you have like knowing and being known here at the foundation. Like you cannot have other parts of intimacy without that first part. And then you have this way of interacting with intimacy, practicing intimacy, developing intimacy with all these other spaces in life. Sex can be one of them, but just like the proportionality, sex can be a piece, but it should be one of the smaller pieces. It shouldn't be a consuming piece. I think where so many people get in trouble is they try to balance their pyramid on this one tiny, tiny point. That's never a structure that was meant to stand. Sex cannot be a co-regulator and the only form of intimacy in someone's life. And when someone begins to view it that way, it becomes a source of dysfunction. A complete intimacy diet is the healthiest way forward.